As if the last two Terminator films weren't proof enough, I'm pretty sure that we're not going to get a good Terminator film until James Cameron comes back to direct. So Terminator Genisys, directed by Alan Taylor, and it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Emilia Clarke, and Jai Courtney. And like we see in the original Terminator, John Connor, the leader of the resistance against the machines, sends Kyle Reese back in time to protect his mom from a Terminator that's sent back by Skynet. But when Kyle Reese arrives in the past, the timeline is kind of different, and now we have this movie. Yeah. So basically what this movie is supposed to do is reboot the Terminator franchise so they can make all these new movies based off of this film. And I didn't have high expectations about this film. I saw the trailers and I wasn't really blown away by them. But the Terminator fan in me wanted this movie to be good, and I was hoping for this movie to be good, and oh man. Let's just get what I enjoyed about this film out of the way. I enjoyed the first 20 to 30 minutes of this film. The whole, battle against the machines, and it's just their last hurrah to finish and win the war. When you're watching that part of the film, it's basically everything you liked about Terminator. It's humanity against the machines and John Connor leading us to victory. And that was cool. I liked that part of the film. And with this whole new timeline, you get old T-800 Arnold Schwarzenegger facing off against young T-800 Schwarzenegger, and that I was kind of digging. Say what you will about the VFX in this movie, because yeah, there are a couple of shots in this movie where the VFX weren't great. I thought the whole digital double for young Arnold Schwarzenegger looked pretty convincing. I mean, I didn't see this movie in IMAX, so that might have did something to do with it. But overall, I dug young Schwarzenegger. I thought it looked pretty good. And also another thing that I liked about the film was their whole fight with the new T-1000. I mean, yeah, he just shows up out of nowhere and there's no mystery about him. It's just boom, there's T-1000. But how they fight him in this one, I thought it was pretty neat and it's pretty cool. And the best thing about this film is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. I mean, yeah, it's not a hard role to perform, but it's kind of like, Hugh Jackman with Wolverine or Robert Downey Jr. with Tony Stark. Yeah, somebody else can play that role, but it's not the same. You need Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Terminator, and he is the best part about this film. And there's a couple other things too. There's one line in this film that gets thrown around a couple of times. No spoilers here, but there's this one line where Arnold's like, "I'm old, but I'm not obsolete." And when he says it directly into the camera. And it's basically like a big middle finger to all of his doubters out there. It's like, yeah, Arnold's old, but he can still sort of pull off these roles that we've come to love to see him in. So that was the good. Now, let's get to what I didn't like about this film. And there's quite a bit. First off, when you tackle time travel in any kind of movie, it's very difficult. You gotta sort of pay attention to all the certain things you do, and they try to do that in this film, but there's so much, and at points it gets so complicated, because there's this one point where Schwarzenegger kind of tries to explain this not like a paradox, but this certain point he tries to explain this pivotal point in time, time travel and things like that, and it's just like, what? Because basically this movie's trying to do what J.J. Abrams' Star Trek did and X-Men Days of Future Past did. The problem is there's several ways you can handle switching up a timeline. You can either do it the way Star Trek did with an alternate reality, because yeah, you still had everything that happened in the original Star Trek movies, but then you had this alternate timeline, and that's what the new movies are based off, because you had old Spock existing in the same universe as new Spock. Or you can go the route that X-Men Days of Future Past did. What you do in the past immediately affects the future, and that's what happens in that movie. But in this movie, it didn't seem to pick which one it wanted to be. There are some points in this movie where it references there being an alternate timeline, but then there are other moments where it's like, well, if we do this, the future is going to get changed. Pick one. Just pick one. And not only that, what X-Men Days of Future Past did so brilliantly with this new timeline is it undid all the crappy stuff that happened with X3 and X-Men Origins Wolverine. Oh my god, those movies. And it also kept everything we loved about X-Men. And what this movie did was basically erase everything. Why would you want to do that? That's so stupid. Because the original Terminator was a really good sort of sci-fi horror movie. And T2 is arguably one of the greatest sequels in cinematic history, aside from another certain movie that I love. And like I said before, Arnold Schwarzenegger is probably the best part of this movie. He embodies everything you love about what he was in the Terminator. But then on the flip side of that, you have Emilia Clarke as Sarah Connor and Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese. I really like Emilia Clarke in Game of Thrones, but in this film, her as Sarah Connor was nothing special. She does have a couple of moments where I really dug what she was doing on screen, but overall it's just like her performance is a little underwhelming. And then we have Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese. I think they miscast him because everything that I've seen him in previous to this movie didn't scream to me, you need to have him as Kyle Reese. It might not be his fault. There are plenty of actors out there that do better with better directors. And he might be one of those actors because as of right now, he hasn't done anything to wow me. And then we have James Clark as John Connor. This isn't a spoiler. You see it in the trailer. And if you haven't seen any of the trailers for this movie, spoiler alert, that John Connor becomes a Terminator. I'm indifferent about that. The biggest problem I have with that is basically just rehashing the same crap that T3 did. T1000 didn't get the job done, so we're going to send a bigger, badder Terminator back in time to fight this obsolete Terminator in Arnold Schwarzenegger. And at the same time, our main character is going to try to take down Skynet. And yeah, that's what the third Terminator movie did, and and that's what it focused on. But I have to give Terminator 3 its props where it's due, because what I liked about Terminator 3, no matter how bad it was, it basically said that Judgment Day is inevitable, it will happen, and I give Terminator 3 props there. And then that also leads me to the final point of why I really didn't like this movie, was there was nothing memorable about this film. Yeah, there are a lot of fun action scenes in this movie, but there was nothing really memorable about them. Because in T2, the whole helicopter chase with T1000, that whole chase scene was just epic. And that whole moment with T1000 getting frozen and the whole hasta la vista baby. And when that moment gets parodied in other movies and TV shows, that's how much of an impact that movie had on society. This Terminator movie didn't have any of that. You can tell that they were trying to do that with certain moments in the film, but it just didn't have the impact that it was supposed to. And that's basically what this entire movie was. It was a big jumble of action sequences with nothing memorable about it. So overall thoughts, there's some things I liked about this movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger is by far the best thing about it. There's some fun action scenes in this, but ultimately there's nothing memorable about them. The performances from the main characters on this film, aside from Schwarzenegger, aren't really great. I mean, they're doable, but nothing special about them. I was optimistic about the whole redoing the timeline thing, but they undo everything you loved about Terminator and just take it in a direction that I didn't like at all. So I'm giving Terminator Genisys a meh. So Terminator Genisys, have you guys seen it? What did you think about it? Leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts. Please do me a favor, hit that like button below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this, you can click right here and see more videos by Andrew.